Enoch's visions were not in the past, because what he saw is happening now, and this time there will be no other chance. In the earliest records, Enoch is described as someone who walked with God and was led to behold what no ordinary man could see. But these visions were not for his time. They were sealed, reserved for a specific moment in history, the time of the end. Daniel received the same command. Close up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many will run to and fro, and knowledge will increase. Daniel 12:4. The pattern is clear. When the seal opens, history accelerates. Like Enoch, we live in a time when the seal seems to be breaking. Ancient revelations, hidden for millennia in the letters of the Torah, the codices of the prophets, and the commentaries of the sages, are emerging with frightening clarity. It's no coincidence that technologies for reading and analyzing sacred texts are revealing patterns that were previously invisible. What was once a distant metaphor is now a map of events, and this map points to 2024 and 2025. The Zohar describes that in the 6th century of the 6th millennium, the floodgates of wisdom from above and below will open, a period that fits exactly with our time, according to the Hebrew calendar. This means that both science and spiritual revelation are moving hand in hand, accelerating toward a climax. It's not just that knowledge has multiplied, it's that it's converging on a single point, and this point is dangerous. Because the same knowledge that opens the mind can also harden the heart. Enoch saw that revelation came at a cost. Not everyone would endure the truth. Some would be awakened to eternal life, others to eternal shame. The seal was broken not to satisfy curiosity, but to summon decision. And we can no longer say, "It is not yet time." The time has come. From the words of Moses in Deuteronomy 30 to the visions of Ezekiel 36, the Torah and the prophets made it clear. The people of Israel would be scattered among the nations, but would one day return to their land. This would not be merely a geographical return, but a spiritual process, setting the stage for the final redemption. The physical return would come first, like the planting of a seed, and then would come the awakening of the Spirit. This promise spanned generations, sustaining a people even in exile and persecution. In 1948, with the proclamation of the State of Israel, the world witnessed the partial fulfillment of this prophecy. In 1967, the reconquest of Jerusalem rekindled the flame of messianic hope. But according to the Zohar, these events would be only the beginning, a first rain before the full harvest. Now, in 2024 and 2025, we see a new wave of Aliyah, Jews from all over the world returning, motivated by growing persecution and an inner calling they can't always explain. The mass return isn't just the result of political or economic crises, it's the invisible hand of the eternal guiding history. The sages say that in the last days, winds will blow from every direction, pushing Israel back home. And these winds today manifest themselves in waves of global anti-Semitism, geopolitical instability, and spiritual signs that awaken consciences. Each new plane that lands in Tel Aviv carries not only people, but the living fulfillment of an ancient decree. But this return is also a test, for the Torah warns, "When the Lord your God brings you back, He will circumcise your heart," Deuteronomy 36. In other words, it's not enough to be on earth, you must be ready for the King. The physical return sets the stage, but the spiritual return prepares the actors for the final act. And we are already watching the scene being set before our eyes. If these words resonate with you, stay with me. What follows will deepen this picture even further. The prophet Zechariah declared, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling to all the peoples around it. All the nations of the earth will be gathered against it." Zechariah 12:2-3. Throughout history, this city has been the center of conflicts that shaped empires and redefined borders. But the prophecy is not limited to the past. It describes a time when tension around Jerusalem would reach a global level, attracting the attention and hostility of all nations. That moment, according to many scholars, has already begun. In recent years, and especially between 2024 and 2025, we have seen how any incident involving Jerusalem instantly reverberates on the world stage. Conflicts in the Gaza Strip, clashes in the West Bank, and rising tensions with neighboring nations serve as triggers for diplomatic, military, and even political reactions. Economic. Every move, every word spoken about Jerusalem echoes in the halls of the UN and the security councils of the great powers. The gematria of the Hebrew year 5785 reveals values associated with terms like sieges and walls. Coincidence or a sign that we are in a specific prophetic cycle? The Zohar teaches that before the Messianic revelation, Jerusalem would undergo a spiritual and physical enclosure, where visible and invisible forces would attempt to suffocate its centrality. But this pressure, according to tradition, will not destroy the city. It will only precipitate the manifestation of the king who comes to liberate it. The pattern repeats itself. Ancient sieges by the Babylonians, Romans, Crusaders, and now modern pressures that blend politics, religion, and war. The current scenario is not just a geopolitical issue, it is the real-time actualization of a prophetic decree. And when all eyes are on Jerusalem, so are the heavens. In the next step, we'll see how the ancient Tower of Babel is rising again, not of bricks, but of codes and machines. In Genesis 11, humanity, united in one language and purpose, decided to build a tower that would reach the heavens. It wasn't just an architectural project, it was a declaration of spiritual independence. We have no need of the Most High. God, seeing the collective rebellion, confused the languages and scattered the peoples. This story, though ancient, is a prophetic pattern that repeats itself on a global scale as humanity seeks to unify against divine will. Today, the tower is not made of bricks and mortar, but of fiber optic cables, satellites, global networks, and algorithms. The new single language is digital, zeros and ones, codes that transcend borders and cultures. In 2024-2025, we see leaders and corporations shaping a unified communication and control system supported by artificial intelligence capable of interpreting and responding in any human language, creating a technological bridge reminiscent of the ancient ambition of Babel. Daniel 12 says that in the end times, knowledge will multiply. The Zohar comments that in this period, machines will speak and judge, a description that seems to be materializing before us today. AI not only translates words, but also processes decisions, influences opinions, and in some cases, sets invisible rules that shape behavior. We are facing a technological convergence that unites governments, businesses, and individuals into a single global system. But as in ancient Babel, this unification carries the risk of collective arrogance. When humanity believes it can replace the Creator with its own work, ruin is inevitable. The question is, will we again see divine intervention confusing this language, or will it be used as an instrument in the final outcome? And as we gaze at this new digital tower, silent signs begin to appear in the heavens, announcing that the prophetic clock is moving forward. The prophet Joel declared, "The sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and dreadful day of the Lord comes." Joel 2:31. Throughout history, celestial signs have always accompanied major prophetic turning points. Enoch, Daniel, and even Yeshua himself pointed to the heavens as markers of the divine plan. These signs are not just astronomical phenomena, they are messages written by the Creator on the cosmic clock that governs time and seasons. In recent years, and especially between 2024 and 2025, we have seen a stunning sequence of solar and lunar eclipses occurring precisely on biblical feast days. Such alignments are unusual. Since ancient times, Israel understood that the sacred calendar was not just a count of days, but a map of prophetic cycles. Each Moedim, appointed time, is a point at which heaven and earth align for something significant. The Hebrew calendar and astronomical calculations reveal that during this period, we are completing patterns that only repeat themselves every many generations. Some rabbis and biblical scholars point out that the exact interval between certain eclipses and the upcoming holidays points to possible decisive events related to Israel and the global geopolitical landscape. It's as if the sky itself is blowing the shofar, signaling that the countdown is underway. But as in the days of Noah, most don't notice. The signs are visible, but few understand their meaning. The sage Shmuel of Lubavitch said, "When heaven speaks, it is to those who hear with their hearts." And that is exactly what we are seeing now. Signs that will only make sense to those who know the prophetic pattern. And while the heavens announce, the earth is once again filled with corruption, repeating a pattern that Enoch knew firsthand. Yeshua warned that in the last days, the world would be as in the days of Noah. Matthew 24:37. Enoch lived during this very period and witnessed moral and spiritual corruption spreading across the earth. It wasn't just physical violence. It was a degradation of divine laws, a complete inversion of what is holy and pure. Isaiah 5:20 describes the same spirit. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. What Enoch saw then, we are seeing now. The spirit of corruption manifests itself in our era in modern guise, but with the same essence. Laws are rewritten to legitimize what God condemns. Values are inverted so that light appears as darkness and darkness appears as light. Entertainment, politics, and even some religious pulpits become channels for normalizing sin. In 2024-2025, we see this agenda escalating not only locally, but on a global scale, as if there were an invisible coordination behind it. The sages teach that when moral corruption reaches collective levels, it contaminates not only individuals, but the earth itself. The Midrash states that the earth groans under the weight of human sin, just as it did in the days before the flood. This groaning, according to the texts, rises to the heavens as a cry demanding an answer from the judge of all the earth. Enoch saw that this answer would come suddenly and irrevocably. The question is, where do we stand on this line? Is the stage set for a global judgment, or is there still room for collective repentance? What we do know is that in the Torah, God has always sent signs and messengers before judgment. And when the measure overflows, he acts. And just as in the past, this action is not limited to individuals. It extends to the nations, setting the stage for collective judgment. The prophet Joel declared, "I will gather all the nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and there I will enter into judgment with them." Joel 3:2. This is not an individual judgment, but a collective one, a verdict against systems, governments, and alliances that rose up against God's purpose. Throughout history, empires have succeeded one another, each believing themselves indestructible. But all have fallen when they opposed the Eternal's plan. This pattern continues, and we are about to see it again. In 2024-2025, we witness an unprecedented global reconfiguration. Powers align, treaties are broken, and new alliances emerge, many with positions hostile to Israel. This is not mere politics, it is prophecy in progress. The Zohar describes that before the Messianic era, there will be a gathering of the forces of evil for a decisive confrontation against Jerusalem. And this gathering, which once seemed distant, is now visible in headlines and diplomatic meetings. The sages teach that the judgment of nations will come not only through natural catastrophes or wars, but also through the self-destruction of their corrupt systems. As in the days of Enoch, when the giants destroyed one another, we will see powers eroding in internal and external conflicts. It will be a collapse that will expose the fragility of seemingly unshakable structures. This collective judgment is also a spiritual watershed. It separates those who submit to the king from those who persist in rebellion. And, according to tradition, soon after this period of confrontation, clear signs of messianic preparation will emerge in Israel. And one of these signs is already on the horizon. The mysterious code of the red heifer, awaited for millennia, has once again manifested itself. In Numbers 19, the Torah describes an enigmatic commandment, the perfect unblemished red heifer, whose ashes purify the impure. More than a ritual, the sages consider it a messianic mystery, because, according to tradition, its full fulfillment precedes the restoration of the temple and the final revelation. To date, only 9 such heifers have been prepared in history, and the 10th, according to the Rambam, will be directly associated with the days of the Messiah. In recent years, and especially now, in 2024-2025, Israel has received red heifers from abroad, all meeting the biblical requirements. This news, largely ignored by the mainstream media, is treated with profound significance by Torah scholars and the leadership of the Temple Institute. It is not just the arrival of an animal, it is the lighting of a lamp on the prophetic clock, indicating that critical stages are about to occur. The Midrash Tanchuma comments that when the 10th heifer is ready, the anointed king will be revealed. This places the event within a highly sensitive context, because the purification through this heifer would pave the way for activities that have not occurred for nearly 2,000 years. Enoch recorded that before the final judgment, there would be tangible signs in the physical world that would mark the beginning of spiritual restoration. If this is happening now, it means we are one step away from an irreversible milestone in the prophetic timeline. But, as always, such clear signs are only perceived by those who understand the revealed pattern. And when all the signs converge, we arrive at this is what the sages call the last convergence, the moment when there are no more gaps between prophetic cycles. Throughout biblical history, each prophetic cycle occurred in isolation. A return from exile here, a war in Jerusalem there, a sign in the heavens at another time. But the sages assert that, in the time of the end, all these elements would occur together, overlapping like waves meeting at a single point. This point is called by some Ha-Ketz Ha-Megule, the revealed end, when the signs cease to be spaced out and begin to accumulate rapidly. In 2024-2025, we see exactly this phenomenon. A mass return to Israel, wars around Jerusalem, global technological unification, rare celestial signs, and biblical rituals about to be revived. None of these events, taken in isolation, is unprecedented. But the fact that they all occur simultaneously is what makes them extraordinary. It's as if the prophetic chessboard is being assembled before our eyes, piece by piece, without pause. The Zohar describes this phase as the dance of crowns, in which the forces of light and darkness move at an accelerated pace, each trying to establish its ultimate dominance. This movement creates a growing tension in the world, felt in politics, economics, spirituality, and even in people's personal lives. Nothing remains stable, and this instability is, paradoxically, the sign that something definitive is approaching. When separate cycles converge, there is no longer time for hesitation. It is the moment when decisions become irrevocable, and each choice carries eternal weight. Enoch witnessed the beginning of this pattern before the flood. We witness its final form before the restoration. And when this convergence reaches its apex, the next thing we will hear will be the sound of the final trumpet. In biblical tradition, the shofar blast is not just a sound, it is a call that transcends dimensions. It summons war, repentance, the gathering of the people, and the coronation of the king. The prophets describe a moment when the great trumpet will sound, Isaiah 27:13. And those who were scattered will return, not only physically but spiritually, to the Lord. This sound will be unmistakable, and no heart will remain neutral before it. Enoch saw in his visions a similar summons, a heavenly announcement that marked the beginning of the final judgment and the restoration of all things. In the language of the sages, the final shofar is the seal that closes the present age and opens the doors of the kingdom. And if all the signs we have analyzed so far are aligning, then perhaps the sound of this trumpet is closer than we imagine. The prophetic clock is not just ticking, it is about to reach zero. Therefore, this is the time to be vigilant, to align our hearts, and to be ready. This isn't about fear, but about preparation. Each of us will have to decide which side we'll be on when the knock echoes. Don't postpone eternal decisions for a tomorrow that may never come. If this message resonated with you, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and walk with us on this journey. That way, when the next sign appears, you'll be among the first to discern it. In the next chapter of the last days in light of the Torah, we will reveal the hidden code that connects the Messiah, the final war, and a forgotten prophecy that has spanned millennia, hidden in the letters of the Torah. What we'll reveal will forever change the way you view current events. Don't miss it.